So Israel has now gone back in hard into Gaza after talks have broken down, predictably, inevitably. And they've now gone in what has been described, they've labelled Operation Strength and Sword. The IDF have carried out massive overnight strikes on Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Both Netanyahu and Trump said that if Hamas don't play ball, then sooner or later, the gates of hell are going to open. And we're starting to see that happening. I want to show you the report. I want to tell you some of the reaction. I want to give you some of Israel's officials. America have spoken about this because this has been absolutely in conjunction and cooperation with America. They were fully aware of this, fully supportive. So the essential story is that at around 2 a.m. this morning, Tuesday morning, the IDF and the Shin Bet, the Israel Security Agency, they started conducting dozens of extensive airstrikes, specifically on mid-level Hamas commanders. Now, by the way, I was going to show you this near the end, but I thought I might just show this to you at the start, actually. These are the at least 5 of the senior Hamas members that have been reported killed. So it's this is a pretty significant moment in trying to degrade Hamas and go back in now. It was unclear if they were targeting senior commanders like Mohammed Sinwar, who might be holding Israeli hostages nearby. Nearly 8 hours after the IDF renewed the strikes, Hamas hasn't managed to fire a single rocket into Israel. At around 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning, IDF Arabic spokesman Colonel Avichai Adre sent out a message to Gaza residents to move further into Gaza, away from the border with Israel, to avoid being attacked as part of the renewed hostilities. I'm getting this information from Jerusalem Post, by the way. The red zone, defined as a combat zone by the IDF, wraps around all Gaza from north to south, seeming to cover between 1/3 to 1/2 of the Strip's area, including Beit Hanun, Harvat, Hazar, and Abbasan. More specifically, the IDF said that civilians should move to the western parts of Gaza City in the north and of Khan Yunis in the south. No more specific instructions were given in central Gaza. And the IDF to date has avoided striking portions of central Gaza more carefully than other parts of Gaza. At different points in the war, there have been reports of hostages being held in some of the areas not being struck as hard. The Air Force attacks are designed to degrade Hamas's renewed military capabilities, after it was leaked that the terror group had returned to a force of 25,000 and Islamic Jihad returned to a force of 5,000, with both groups also rebuilding military defensive positions throughout Gaza. And the IDF are going to broaden their operation, including a returned land invasion as needed, but it's notable that no ground invasion has started yet. In other words, the military is observing to see if Hamas will make its negotiating position regarding leaving Gaza and the hostages more flexible, though all signs in the early hours of the attack were that the Gazan terror group would hold its ground. Hamas reported that over 300 Gazans had already been killed, though there was no way to verify the numbers or to distinguish between terrorists and civilians. So again, don't just take whatever Hamas say as gospel. And increased IDF forces have taken defensive positions on all fronts, including increased deployment of aerial defense platforms. Now, I'd like to get to some clips of people talking about it. So here is first former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett reacting to this moment.
We warned Hamas endless times that they have to release the hostages and dismantle themselves. Otherwise, the IDF will attack. They've not done it. Time has run out, and now the Israeli Defense Forces and Israel's Air Force are going to attack with all our might until we achieve those objectives.
He's right. By the way, I can't help but feel, they say time is running out. This has gone on way, way, way too long. You give people 12 hours to do what they need to do, otherwise you go in hard. And the other problem is that the more this drags out, the more the world's memory of why Israel's doing this begins to wither. Here is the White House press secretary explaining that she is totally, the America and the White House is totally with Israel on this. Have a watch.
Well, the Trump administration and the White House were consulted by the Israelis on their attacks in Gaza tonight. And as President Trump has made it clear, Hamas the Houthis, Iran, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel, but also the United States of America will see a price to pay. All hell will break loose. And all of the terrorists in the Middle East, again, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, Iranian-backed terror proxies, and Iran themselves should take President Trump very seriously when he says he is not afraid to stand for law-abiding people. He is not afraid to stand up for the United States of America and our friend and our ally Israel. And we know that these successful defensive strikes that took place over the weekend against the Houthis in the Red Sea were indeed successful. We took out some of their leaders, and the Defense Department is set to continue with this campaign if the Houthis continue with their retaliatory measures. The president is going to stand for the navigation, freedom of navigation of our seas, which is a very basic principle that unfortunately the previous administration refused to stand for, and that's why we are in this mess in the Middle East in the first place. President Trump inherited a lot of problems, Sean, because of the incompetence and the weakness of the Biden-Harris administration, but he is focused on fixing them, and our allies and our adversaries better take him seriously.
There you go. Unflinching, unwavering support. Just want to remind you as well again, because this is something that, memories fade so quickly. Israel will not forget what happened October 7th, and afterwards, we do not forget what they're doing to our people right now, what they're plotting to do to our people. And one of the big things that has been seared into our memory is the way they paraded around the Bibas family. It's almost too painful to look at this. It is utterly disgraceful what they did, and it actually reawakened within Israel's and Jewish people's consciousness our need to destroy this kind of evil. And it's funny because someone's said to me, they would have thought that Hamas would at least be a bit more strategic in their PR, and this doesn't look good for them. And I think it was Hillel Fools who said, the one thing that they can't help, even when it comes to PR, even if PR will be compromised, when it comes to celebrating the pain, suffering, and death of Jews, they can't even hide that. So they reveal themselves in the end. A US national security spokesperson has said Hamas had the chance to release the hostages and extend the ceasefire, but it chose war. We presented multiple proposals for hostage release, but Hamas rejected them all. Now it's time for the stick, not just the carrot. And as you can see here are some examples of senior Hamas members that have been targeted. But frankly, in my view, the whole carrot and stick thing, the time for that is over. The time for negotiation is over. Frankly, I'm not even sure why negotiation ever should have been a thing. I grew up in the 2000s, and I remember the central line that we'd always hear and, parrot George Bush saying, the president, we don't negotiate with terrorists. That was just common sense. It was such an obvious principle. And what is Israel pressured to do time and time again? To negotiate with terrorists. It is not only unwise, it's so dangerous. Because it gives the terrorists ability to get things that they want. It sets a precedent, telling them, encouraging them, incentivizing them to do more terror, because they know that if it means you'll come to the negotiating table, then it works. And it should never, ever be the strategy when you're dealing with people who are this twisted and warped in their mindset. The other line we'd always hear, although there's actually more going back to the started with the 80s, I think it was President Reagan, who coined the term peace through strength. Strength is the way that you deal with terrorists, not negotiation. So more of this, please, from Israel. More of this. Peace through strength. And also, not just strength, but not just doing things in half measures. For too long, it seems like Israel has just been, probably because of pressure, because they don't know what else to do, just containing and trying to manage things. I see no reason why, after Israel has said, we've given you Gaza, we've given you a shot at trying to make your own mini Palestinian state, and you've chosen bloodshed, war, and anti-Semitism, not just as a government, but as a society as well. And I'm not talking about absolutely every single individual, but yes, it seems from so much evidence, both anecdotal, from first-hand experiences of soldiers and hostages in Gaza, from what we see in primary source of evidence, and also from polling, that there is widespread support for Hamas in Gaza, and therefore Israel should be able to do whatever she needs to do in order to protect her people and ensure long-term security, whatever that looks like. That is moral. And not only is that moral, but doing things quickly is moral as well, for both sides, so you don't have to have a whole generation growing up knowing only war. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.